The pace was frantic as legislators headed toward adjournment. eCapitol News Director Sean Ashley joined me to talk more about the week's events at the Capitol. Sean, finally, the budget passed and it went to the governor.
That's right. This week on Thursday, in fact, the House took the final step of passing the budget. It's $7.1 billion. That's $100 million less than the prior year. And there's really some interesting things in this budget. Most agencies do not get additional money. What we see are some select agencies like the Department of Education, for example, that receive more money. And then there's about $37 million scattered out throughout the budget for state employee pay raises, where they targeted corrections workers, the Department of Public Safety, and some other select job titles, which they found in their study last year were very underpaid.
The school safety and security bill that related to storm shelters, supported by the governor, passed after it failed.
That's right. We saw that on Thursday afternoon, and into Thursday evening in the House. Originally, the measure passed. People were critical of it for a number of reasons. First of all, if approved by voters locally, it would result in a property tax increase, and people were concerned about that. Secondly, it also affects only a limited number of school districts. In order to pass the bond issue, you have to meet certain qualifications, and when they looked at that, it seemed like there were only about 25 school districts out of the 500 and some in Oklahoma that would qualify to utilize the bill. So in the end, it probably wouldn't generate that many storm shelters. During a break on the House floor, we saw Governor Mary Fallin speaking with a number of members. Of course, we can't go on the House floor and ask her what she's talking to them about, but it seems more than likely, considering how quickly they took up reconsideration of the bill, that she was probably speaking to them about that issue, and on a second vote, it did in fact pass.
And finally, the Capitol repair bill came up and was voted on.
That's right. Once again, you had a number of concerns raised about it, increasing the debt of the state, whether it would get the job done, and issues like that. I think in the final analysis, what will be interesting to watch is what's done. The bill does create a committee made up of legislators and other officials from within the building that will review the final plan for the Capitol repairs. Their report's not due until the end of the year, so it will be next year, 2015, before we see any work begin on the Capitol.
It went all the way to the final day, and Common Core was debated hotly.
That has been a very controversial issue throughout the length of the legislative session, really. There are those who say that Common Core imposes federal standards on the state of Oklahoma, standards that we were not involved in creating and therefore don't know exactly what they are and will not be beneficial to our students. On the other side of that fence, there are people who argue that in fact Oklahoma was involved in developing those standards, that they are the next step in the evolution of education, not only in Oklahoma but throughout the country for that matter, and the discussion probably will continue even after the legislative session ends.
And the American Indian Cultural Center and Museum went down to defeat.
That's right. Throughout the legislative session, there were efforts to get funding for that. It ran into difficulties in the House. Once those difficulties developed, they were insurmountable, and the project did not receive the additional $40 million from the state. What that means for the $40 million in private donations that have been pledged, we just don't know. If they'll hold out for another year, or if the city of Oklahoma City, which ultimately donated the land and has the authority to act on that and take it back in a manner of speaking, might move forward and do something on its own. We'll just have to wait and see.
eCapitol News Director Sean Ashley, thank you, and we'll talk again next week.
Very good.